Hi, this is James Scott with Board on the Bayou. In this episode, I'm going to be reviewing the game Auztralia by Martin Wallace, published by Stronghold Games. 1 to 4 players. It's 30 to 120 minutes. Ages 13 and up. First off, say this is a 4X type game of Euro style game, but with a twist. I'll go ahead and read it out and do the review at the beginning and say I really love this game. This is instantly popped in my top 10, possibly even top 5 favorite games to play. I love it for the fact that it's competitive, it's cooperative. If you don't work somewhat together with the other players, Cthulhu will win, and the game itself wins. So not only do you have to work together to fight back the monsters, you have to be trying to get your own victory points in the process. Because at the end of the game scores, and if the monsters have more points, the game wins. Like in one of the last games we played, I had 24 points. Ends up, after we started totaling up the points, the game had over 50 points. It doubled our amount. Because we didn't realize that you really needed to work together and take out the monsters just as much as the other players. So when the monsters start attacking the other players, you kind of need to help them out a little bit. You know, you want to have them do a little damage to them to knock down their points, but at the same time, you need to stop them, because if they destroy the port of the other player, the game ends and the scoring takes place right away. So, like I said, I really love this game. I'll go ahead and we'll go down to the tabletop and I'll give you the basics on how the game plays. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Brass, Ticket to Ride, and Eldritch Horror, kind of all threw together in a mix, and is really well done. Another thing I really like, the fact what I'll be showing you too, is there's no dice in the game. All the attacking you do against the monsters is using a card system, and what you'll do is you'll flip over a card, and depending on the type of creature you're attacking, it will tell you what units attack to do damage to the creature, and if the creature damages you. And you flip over another card and another card, and you keep attacking until either you run out of sanity or you run out of units, and then you either retreat or lose. I really like that mechanic. It's nice. I know a lot of us that either really lucky with the dice one day and not with the cards. It's pretty much a set. Certain monsters are more vulnerable to certain types of units. So you'll learn that like artillery and infantry are good against the temples, but like the Migos, you need airships. So you want to have like a little variety in your army. And as soon as you see what monsters pop up, you can kind of modify your army a little bit. And that's another thing I like about the game is you gotta worry about your military, and at the same time worrying about putting out farms and expanding your empire. Do you want to go out into the dangerous areas and mine? If you do, you got a chance of being attacked. Because once these monsters start attacking, they always like to go after the nearest target. So if you have this nice little line of resources heading back to your place, odds are once he hits that first one, he's going to go all the way down your line and go right to your port. Kind of almost like a E.T. with the little candies. You know, ooh, candy, ooh, candy, ooh, candy. He's going to come right towards your port. So you got to kind of put that whether or not you're going to do that too. For difficulty-wise of the game, it's real easy to pick up. If you played any of the Euro 4X games, this one's real easy. I love the setup for it. setup is unique for every game you play. What you do on it, well, I will be showing you, is you put down these cards. At the very beginning, they have locations. They tell you where to put the cards at. And you flip the cards over and they tell you all the resources that go around the card. So every time you play, you're going to have a different amount of resources. And another thing they did, which is unique for a lot of games, is they actually utilize the back of the board. So if you find this board is getting a little too easy, you flip it over and go to the hard side of the board. And it's a whole different type of territory. Also, too, the game can be level adjusted by the amount of monsters you put in, which ones you go up here. Because the easy monsters are here, and then the mediums are a little further up, and then the real hard ones are up in the far up in the continent. So what you can do is you can adjust by taking out some of the easier monsters and kind of making it a little harder, and I really like that. So this game has a lot of replayability. So that's my thoughts of the game. So if you stay tuned, I'll go ahead and we'll go down to the table and I'll show you how the game is played. Thank you. All right. Can't quite fit everything in here, but this will give you a basic idea of the game. Everybody gets a player board and a bunch of tokens. There's just a couple of them just so I can show. On their turn, they're going to move your tokens to a different action. Let me put a few more up here. Whatever, in order to do the action, you pay the cost in time. Whoever's in last place and the one on top, they get to go first. And then that whenever they do a thing such as buy a card, they pay it in time. They move their chip up. Then yellow would say he pays 1. So he goes on top. Well, now he can go again. Now he does a move that does 3. So he'd move forward 3. So now green can go, okay, well, I'm going to do a mine action. I'm going to do a farm action. And so that's 1. And say I only farmed 1. And then I'm going to do a railroad action. That costs 3. So 1, 2, 3. And I move all the way up here. Keep going on these time until you get to 22. At 22 is when the game starts playing also. And when the game plays, you'll flip over these cards. You'll have a deck. You'll set up this deck. And it will tell you what happens. And whenever you're on these odd numbers, that's when you draw from the deck. And you also see if the monsters move. You flip over these cards. These cards are used for a lot of different actions. These will tell you all the monsters that move. If they have the little circle around it, that means they move this turn. And this number at the top will tell you what direction you move in. There's a little compass down at the bottom of this board. I think you can see it. It'll tell you what direction. They'll always want to move towards another player. If they can't move towards a player, then this will tell you keep going around clockwise or counterclockwise until it moves it closer to a player. These cards here are also used for the attacking, which I'll show in a little bit. When you originally start the game, you'll set out on these little board. There's these triangle spots, and you'll randomly grab all these triangles, and you'll flip them over, and then they'll tell you put gold here, monster here, gold. Well, you can't put anything in these locations, but a phosphate. And they'll tell you how to spawn everything. So every time you play this game, this whole area is going to be randomly generated of where monsters are going to be at and such. And you'll see there's these numbers in this upper corner. They tell you what level of monsters to put in each of those locations when you spawn a monster. So you got the level 1s and 2s. But let's say in this location here, it's a level 1. But if let's say this triangle told you to put a monster here and another triangle. That's a bad example. Let's say here. This triangle told you to put a monster here, and this triangle told you to put a monster here. First, you'd put the level 1, and then you would upgrade it to a level 2 monster. You can see all the way back here, deep in the outback, is the level 3s. These are the real big ones. You have your coal out here. You have your gold, phosphate. These are for victory points. And iron. Get your little iron cubes. They got some really nice little coal nuggets and gold nuggets and iron bars. Components in this game are really nice. And then after you spawn the board, each player will take their little port icon, and then they'll put them on one of these edge locations. And you can't have one within 2 squares of another, so everybody has to kind of spread out a little bit. The different actions you can do when it's your turn is build a railroad for 1 coal, 1 iron. Can be done on the coastal, outback, or the hills. It costs you 3 time. 2 time 1. You can build 2 railroads for iron or coal, 2 time, and it can be done only on the coastal and the outback. You can mine a location. You can mine a location. I'll explain why there's two of these in a second. You can buy a personality card. You can do a farm action. You can buy a military unit. You have to pay the 1 time plus the gold cost for however much it is to buy that unit. You can take a coal or an iron, or sell a coal and iron for 1 gold. You can do You can do one of these actions twice. You can attack. The time cost will be, I'll show you, explaining that one in a little bit. Or you can take all your cubes back. For 1 time, you can take all the cubes back. Reason why is if there's a cube here already, let's say you're on this one, and you want to take this action again, you have to pay the time cost plus 1 gold for every cube that's on that spot. When you're placing your railroads down, you're placing your railroads on the line here, and you're doing 2 at a time. And as you can see, if you're coming on this outside edge here, you have to go across these hills, so it's going to be more costly. Or you can go the easier route over here that doesn't have that, it just has coastal and goes right into the outback. Problem is, as you'll notice, these numbers in this lower bottom corner will tell you anytime you spawn the monsters, 9 out of 10 times they'll spawn in the lowest number. So they're more likely to spawn down here, and then they'll work their way up, and then these will spawn. So these are more likely to spawn down here than these are up here. For the farm action, you pay time. You get to place 1 of each type, and it costs you a time for every one you place. So in these cases, and you have to, you can only spawn them in areas that your railroads are touching. So I could, you see here, I could put 1 corn here, I could put a sheep here, and I put a cow here. That cost me 3 time, and I get 3 gold, 1 gold for each. And then these are worth victory points at the end. The only problem is, like I was saying in the beginning part, these kind of lead the little meal trail right towards your place. Because if this guy spawns, and when he does his movement, he's going to move to the nearest player. And if you're the nearest one, and let's say somebody way down here, and you happen to draw that number, and it starts moving this way, he's going to eat and turn these to a blight, so they're no longer worth victory points. And he's going to slowly eat his way all the way to your port and attack your port eventually. If you lose your port, you lose the game. Game ends, everybody scores up. That's where I was saying that you kind of want to work together, because if green player gets attacked and loses, everybody, the game ends. The board gets victory points equal to double the amount of these ones that aren't. So if this guy was flipped over, if he's worth 1 victory point to the game if he survived. If he was not exposed, he's worth 1 victory point. Which makes Cthulhu, these are down, here's a reference to the big ones. Cthulhu is worth 24 points if he's never been exposed. So you want to make sure you come up here and reveal these big ones down here, because they are worth they can be worth a lot of victory points to the game. So you want the time, make sure you get out there and explore and fight the monsters, kind of help other players fight the monsters, but they can snack a few times on the other player. And then let's say he got down to about here, and I happen to have I'll say I was playing yellow and I happen to have a railroad nearby. I'll send my troops over to fight him so that he don't end the game. And he did some damage to my opponent, which, yay, hint. But better for me. When it comes to attacking, it's another unique concept in this game. When you have the units, say you have some infantry and an artillery and an armored car. I'm going to take my armored car and these 2 infantry. Now they don't count as individuals. They count basically that unit. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. So I'm sending these 2 troops out there. It's going to cost me 1 time and 1 time. So these 2 troops, to send them to attack, is going to cost me 2 time. And they can move. This one can move 2 spaces, and this one can only move 1. So I could only, with this attack, I could only move 1 space from the end of my space that I control. So my railroad ends here, so I'm considered having this space, so I could attack this guy here. So we'll say I attack that guy or monster, and we would flip and we would do the attack. Oh, I'm sorry. And we also get 3 sanity tokens every time you attack. You lose your sanity, you lose the fight and have to retreat. You flip over, you look at the monster that you're fighting, and it will tell you what units. So if I had an airship there, it would damage it, which I don't. And he does 1 damage to me, so I would put a damage cube on my guy. And then I'd say I continue battle. Nothing and nothing. Continue battle. Nothing and nothing. Armor railroad, and he would damage at any airships, which I don't have. He would do another damage, and I don't have an airship. So let's say I spread out the damage. An airship. Let's see. Now, and let's see. Let's say this one come up, and it shows the 1 troop. Even though I have 2 troopers here, you go by however many icons are here. So they would do 1 damage. So I would put 1 damage on the monster. And he would do 1 damage and he would kill one of my guys. So let's say I would take this infantry off. And that's the reason why we'd bring additional troops of a type. This one would do, artillery would do damage. A railroad train and an artillery would do damage. So you kind of need to look at when you're going after which type. On the back of the book will tell you what type of monsters were worth versus what type of military unit, which ones are most effective. And they'll tell you, like right here, the armored carrier and the train are ineffective against, I'm sorry, the armored car. Yeah, the armored car and the armored train are not effective against the temple. The other ones are average, poor. So you got to look at whenever it spawns, you got to figure out which ones you want to attack with. You'll keep going like this until either a player gets to, or all players get past this board, past this point, or if purple gets down here. And then that's the game over. The time runs out. You score victory points. I forgot to show you these. These are the personality cards. These are where you could buy these different cards. These will be laid out. They'll have, you'll set out 5 of these out at along the edge of the board, and you can buy them. A lot of them are for like extra victory points, inflict damage on any face up old one-time use, bunch of different ones. 1 victory point for every corn farm you have, and then at the end of the game, you'll total up your victory points. As you can see, these blighted fields and sheep and all that, those are no longer worth victory points. You count up however many of these bosses you have killed. If more than one person did damage on it, you split up the victory points. They have some victory point tokens that you can hand out to the various players, so you can keep track of them that way. If not, you just take the whole thing. And then you total up the old one's victory points. And good luck, because like I said, I won until we totaled up the old ones, and he doubled my points in that last game. You can adjust various ways to adjust the level of the game. There's also at the very beginning of the game, after you played it a few times, you have objectives, extra little things to get some extra victory points. And if you want to even make it harder, they were nice enough to actually put a second board on the back, and this is a harder board. This is a lot more desert area, and if you notice, you only can put resources here. Out in the desert, there's no places to put any sheep in that. You can only put it along this one coast. A lot more harder to play. So that's Australia with a Z. This is James Scott with Board on the Bayou. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. Thank you.